Okay. Let's get rid of the chat. Oh, well, so we'll have some.
Yes, I guess we need to share your.
Yep, I'll share it now. See what we do with. Oh, well, you can cover my name. Yes, okay. Okay. Shall I get started?
I think you should, yeah, I know that there are 22 other people that want to come, but I think, they'll join us when they.
They'll have to fight for a chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, lovely to see all of you. Not sure what you wanted to hear, so I just prepared stuff. Feel free to interrupt me. I will be asking you a bit about yourselves in a moment. My topic is something I'm passionate about, both because of work I've done for a long time. I will try to speak slowly because I know you're not familiar with an Australian accent and native language is not English. But there are two themes: new ways to learn and new things to learn, both of great interest to this group, but rather different. Oh, yeah, sorry. See that. If you want to get the talk, this should work. It gives you a readable version, should you wish to take it away for the future. And there's a tiny URL, but we did try it. Okay, so where's it gone? Terrific. Wrong screen. All right, pull this out, sorry. It loves to do that. Okay, let me just fix this. Well, it's taken me to the wrong screen, and here we go. That should now work. Okay, let me now connect it again. Okay. Okay. Yes, be patient. Okay, well, the technology's taken a while. So, step one, what I'm going to call introductions, and I'm going to use this word user models because in human-computer interaction, which I know is probably not your area, but it's mine, it's a term that's used. I'm going to introduce 4 meanings of this word. I'm sorry, that's the way the world is. It's confusing. Okay, so first, a little about me. I am definitely a computer scientist. These words on the left, I don't care if they mean anything or not, but that's the stuff I do. They're the hammers I've learnt, and all the world looks like nails. But nevertheless, these are the things I really want to work on. And these are things that link with, I think, this audience. Don't know that health and wellness so much, but there's a lot of education there too. And this one, which is strongly, Bob and I have collaborated for many years on building systems, computer science. I'm not so much focusing on that. These are the sustainable development SDGs, which we had to focus on, which may or may not mean anything in the future. And obviously the top one is relevant. And the second one. A little bit more. I was editor-in-chief with Vincent 11 from Carnegie Mellon of the AI Ed Journal. From 2012, we took it on and said we'd keep it till we got an ISI ranking. We'll only step down in 2024 because it was a long story. And anyway, so it's really people who build technology more than anything in the last 20 years of its life. It's been around a long time. There was a broader audience earlier on. This community, which is more computer scientists who build things, and what I love about them is they are looking at personalization based on a user model, which I mentioned before, and they don't mind if it's education or anything. It's just so nice because at their conferences, you can learn from people in different fields with different words, whereas up here, we're strictly in education. This one, interactive intelligent systems, more my computer science end, and this one, interactive mobile wearable and ubiquitous technologies. Just to warn you, I'm a techo person, as is Bob, so you're going to have to stop me if I get things wrong. But as I told you, Shai, I gave variations of this talk in Haifa to the learning sciences people and got challenged and changed a whole lot of words. So I hope it's more meaningful. Now a little about you. I know the person online, I can't really, we could get the image, but it's very hard to do hybrid. I'm going to ask you, apparently it's very healthy to put your arms in the air, makes your heart work a bit more when you sit. Right hand up if you know this word, user model, left hand if you really don't, and both hands if you can't commit. So everyone should have at least one arm in the air. This is me understanding you. You can put both hands up if it's too hard to work it out. Okay, I think the left, and yeah, so, okay, Shai, you're an outlier. Open learner model. Right hand again, if you know it, left if you don't, and both hands. Okay, so did a little bit better. Okay, to be honest, I think if we who try to help people learn and use technology, if we had this word widely used, we would have a start of being able to talk about something important, and that's part of what I hope to sell today. Tell me if you disagree. But I started using this in my teaching in the example case I'll show you, and my heart rose as my students walked in and talked about their open learner model and so on, as if they knew about it forever. There, yeah. Explainable AI, right hand if you know that, left if you don't. Same deal, both hands if you're not sure. Okay, more left hands. That's more computer science. In fact, all the left-hand side is computer science. I argue that every learner should believe they are in control of the software they use, and they should be able to demand an explanation of it when it does something. We've got a way to go. There are a lot of people in computer science who say we should do that. What we're doing, I don't know. But in the case of education, I think it's important for the relationship between the learner and the machine. I think it's deeply important, ever more now, and not talked about enough yet. Scrutability. Right hand if you've heard of that. Left if you haven't, both hands. This should be a left hand for most people. Yeah, it's a very, it's an English word that I'll talk about tomorrow to the Google people. In English, we do say someone's inscrutable. Okay. And finally, right. Ontology. Right hand up if you've heard of that. You understand that. Left if you don't. And okay, everyone's getting a bit sick of this, but let me go through a bunch more and get you, just put your hand up if you know some of these, and your left hand if you don't know any of them, and both hands for anywhere in between. You just have to know some for your right hand. Yeah. Left hand is for none. Okay, so everybody knows these are the education ones. This Biggs is an Australian influential person for engineering education. Bloom, I think everyone knows. Metacognition, that's our stuff. Hard to say, epistemic humility. We need a new word that's easier even for English speakers to pronounce. I think this is deeply, deeply important for us to teach. And I'll come later to a summary of what I think are the big problems to tackle. This is part of it. And problem-based learning, I welcome questions about it, but I won't. Okay, new ways to learn. And I want to share a little bit about the AI Ed community I come from, which Yishai probably associates me with. And here is just a little bit of history. It's a community that really started in some ways with the first computers, because I know computer scientists are regarded as a bit nerdy, but they saw immediately this technology would be good for teaching. And Well, I see a lot of people reinventing things that our community has managed to hide without wanting to. So firstly, who has heard of this? Let's do last time, promise. Right hand up if you've heard of the 2 sigma problem by Benjamin Bloom, another Bloom. Oh, maybe it's the same Bloom, might be the same guy. Don't know. Right hand if you have, left if you haven't. Everyone's tiring. Oh, a lot of left hands. Okay, this was the driving, 84. And if you're an education person, you read the paper, you will criticise it like every educational study. So I will warn you if you go and look at it. So what he showed was he said that if we had, it doesn't say here expert, if you have an expert one-to-one tutor, how much benefit is that compared to a whole classroom? Because technology suggested we might be able to have an expert one-to-one tutor. And we know people pay for expert, well, whatever expert is. The idea of this was if we had technology, everyone could have a one-to-one tutor. It's a very honourable goal and it drove the field. I just want to show you this graph generated, I didn't put the acknowledgement, Gem and I did the graph. So this blue curve is the learning achievement for a conventional classroom. And this one, the purple one, is the same group of people with one-to-one teaching. And what this means is that what was the 98th percentile, the top 2% of the class, suddenly becomes the average. Now, if that's your kid or mine, wouldn't you like them to be in a situation where they're on this curve rather than this one? And this one's mastery learning, and I won't, there are religious laws around this. We could discuss that. That was the vision. And they came up with this model. They actually always split these into 2. So if we're going to build software, and it could be just any teaching software, you need domain expertise. So if you're going to teach kids arithmetic, you need a program that can do arithmetic or whatever, translation, whatever. Pedagogic expertise, something that knows how to teach. You know, the student is presented with material, then they're tested, and if they get it all wrong, well, you don't just go on, right? You do something sensible. So hopefully you don't just go on. That's the pedagogic model. The learner model is the data about the learner, and this is what I want to, this has been the focus of my work. And in the early work, there was interfaces, which was the same size as the others. So key story was that because the learner model over here had a representation of relevant information about the learner, John Self, one of the leaders in our field, said that we do personalisation and AI-ed systems care about the learner precisely, where precisely means what's in the learner model. Now, obviously every teacher does this. You know, you teach something and get the whole class to do a problem and they all get it wrong. You know, you work out for yourself, I failed to teach that. What you do about it next, I don't know. It's a bit harder. But when you design that teaching content and that assessment content, you could have said, this is the particular thing I wanted them to be able to do, which in my case was earliest work was teaching students to read a little piece of code with a loop in it. Can they read it and say what it prints? Okay. So what is a learner model? Also called a user model, because when the learner is a user using a teaching system, why people use both words. I'm sorry, I can't help it. That's the way it is. Different papers are talking about exactly the same thing and use different words. And my early research always used early user model. Okay, so the 4 meanings that I promised you. First, in human-computer interaction and maybe cognitive science, you people might know more than I do, it's the model that the teacher has of the learner. The model I built up of you from whether you put your right or left hand up, right? and that you use to teach? Ah, yeah, okay, thank you. I'll move myself. Whoops. The second meaning for people who create systems is it's an explicit model frozen in the code. Let me give you an example. You're building a system for 8-year-olds. Well, you have lots of assumptions about 8-year-olds, like they know a certain amount of maths if it's a math system. They have a certain language level. So you will carefully write the system to match what you have in your head as a designer, just as you and a teacher have a model. But that's not what but the word is the same. Another one that my field, AI Ed, does, and maybe some of you have met, is this classic stuff where you've got a lot of data about learners and you say, oh, must be good for something. I can predict who's going to fail and then go and get them and try and save their soul, yeah? That's number 3, predict something. And the last one, which is the focus of my research and is really deeply different, is a model of one learner. So here is me, a learner, sitting in front of a computer, and it's modeling me. And using whatever I've done. And, you know, we techo people want to use the camera to look at whether I'm confused or bored and so on, maybe. So typical definitions are it's usually keeping track of the knowledge of the learner because that's useful. But it might be skills. I mean, skills, but it could be other attributes. I've got a list of them. I gave this reference, which it actually got one of the clearer definitions. I realised our field didn't produce good definitions. So why create learner models of the sort, the individual learner models? Number 4. Answer 1 is to do personalisation, the sort of stuff that there's heaps of software around. Choose different assessments depending on how fast you're going, whether you need to take things in smaller steps or bigger steps or whatever. Lots of things. But my work is about, and I hope this makes more sense than the version I gave to computer scientists. This is a model sitting hidden in a computer. And if we show it to the learner, or we let the teacher and the learner sit down together and have a conversation about it, suddenly we can have shared understanding of the learner's progress. So if we're going to do that, we have to be, as software developers, we have to design it for that purpose. So the whole point is here, we define a learner model, then we make an interface, which we call an open learner model, and it can support various metacognitive activities, such as reflection, self-monitoring, planning, etc. I know there are buckets of them. It's another religious area. Well, yeah, please feel free to butt in. So it's a little bit like this, and it's a way of looking in a mirror. You can see the rendering is not perfect because the data is never perfect. So scrutability. Now, this is where I said, I believe when we build a system, the learner should be in control and believe it is their responsibility and right to be in control. I mean, they're sort of in control because they can actually decide not to use it, right? Or they can decide to cheat the system or to get someone to help them. They have a certain amount of control, but we don't build them for control. So scrutability, I'll illustrate what it means. And what I mean is an open learner model, which I'm starting to see more papers using the term in fields that are outside pure AI, and I hope that will continue. So here's the picture I showed before, and now I'll move myself out of the way. And since the early days of my field, because it really started possibly in the 70s, really early, interfaces are much more important, so I've made them bigger. And open learner models are a very special sort of interface. I think every learning system should have. I'm preaching. Okay, whoops. So here are some examples, because obviously examples are good to learn from. Let me just put this animation around here. This is Peter Brusilovsky. It's one of my favorites. I've got permission to use it, so I put in everything. So this is teaching programming, and it doesn't really matter if you're familiar with it. These terms will look familiar. Bright green, so deep green means you've shown that you know it. And lighter shades mean you haven't shown as much. Over here is the lowest. Now, this is a group model, and if you're education people, I know social comparison possibly frowned on. But this system actually not only provides it, but it also helps you see the difference. So here I'm ahead, here I'm behind the group that I'm comparing myself with. In theory, this could be the whole class, and students care about this, but it could be I'm a high achieving student. I want to just compare myself with top students or something. But what is nice is this is where the scrutability comes in. If you click on this particular thing, it shows you why that is that color. It means you've done a bunch of quizzes, you've got a less complete, but you've still done a bunch of examples, and yeah, these animated examples. Plus, this now tells you what you can do to do more. Or you can say, well, actually, it went very green already. I'm okay. Yeah, in different systems I built with, or my PhD students built, where we had medical students on a similar interface, they actually set themselves a high standard, I'm relieved to say. Here's another example. This is a paper that a student of mine did. He looked at widely used, these are the main platforms that he looked at, virtual reality educational games. They had to be popular and they had to be marked as educational. I mean, who decided they're educational? You know. Anyway, and he looked at a very large number, I can't remember the number now, and found 4 that had what I would call a learner model. So this is one where, if you can see in the background, there are people, and as a student using it, you're doing public speaking, just like I'm doing now, but it has these avatars that are nodding and so on. And when you've finished your practice speech, it shows you, well, you got a 9 out of 10 for eye contact. It's actually showing you left and right, making you more aware of what it's measuring and what you need to work on. Very simple idea. And we don't really have a word for it except open learner model. And here are some other attributes. We're not interested in this domain, but the point is hardly anyone does it in these popular games. I found this example in Khan Academy some years ago, and it's for doing some math set, and there are actually 104 skills, and this is showing you the level. So this is clearly a very simple open learner model, and hopefully it gets bluer and deeper blue. Can you click on it and find out what that skill is? Well, no, but yeah, we could come back to why that is so. Here's a recent case I want to quickly share. I'm getting well into it. We have this really mad idea that any teacher could build a learner model that is really low tech. It is a spreadsheet where the teacher defines the ontology, in other words, the topics to learn and the relationships between them, and the students provide the data. It's their learner model for them. I've used it. Bob used it in a slightly different way in this paper we wrote up there. But this I want to quickly show PhD student to my colleague, Annie Yuan, and colleague Danny Liu, who has a tool called Cogniti, which I don't know if you've heard of, but many universities use it. And I asked him, and he said he's happy for his 60 countries it's used in. So here's a question. Students, what's going to be on the exam? And this is in the context of a course called Human in the Loop Data Analytics. It's a third-year subject, which I was teaching. And it was different from anything the students had done before. They were either, half the class had done a lot of statistics and some programming, and half had done a little statistics and a lot of programming. And human aspects, to be honest, they were not super excited about. And they weren't used to this type of course. About 10% of the class actually comes from philosophy and psychology, and they actually found the culture of the course easier. Okay, so here is the idea. It's a very lightweight open learner model you could make tomorrow with absolute student control. All data is provided by the student. The ontology is provided by the teacher. And each lecture, I showed it and had the class do activities around it. So it's not trivial to use, but as I said, by halfway through the semester, the students were using the word ontology and open learner model and so on. But what we also, I just wanted to show you Big's constructive alignment. He says we all write learning objectives. Yeah, we've got to get them approved by somebody, yeah, that says what the core subject's teaching. But we then make activities, learning activities and assessments. And he says they should all be aligned. In other words, you should measure what you thought you wanted them to learn, and you should teach what you want. So if you've got data, this paper that I did with a bunch of colleagues, including Bob, we actually nowadays get a lot of data in our learner management system, often very hard to use, to be honest. But you know, maybe it would get better when we have words to talk about it. Over here, we have assessment data, which could feed into my learner model. And if you then store that data in a form that the learner can see it, then you're in a position for the learner to actually work out what they've got to learn and what all this data says about their progress. Okay, and we all assume that they know this. You know, you got 6 out of 10 for that assignment. Oh, you know you're okay or you don't. I mean, and yet we've got lots of educational literature that says that's a problem. So here's my low-tech model. So firstly, I want to show you the subject. The ontology has got 3 levels, and my course is really fascinating and I'd love to talk to anyone about it, but that's not really the point here. There are 6 topics, high-level topics, that the students need to learn, and each one has got a level 2 bunch of topics, and each of those has got subtopics, and this is just showing you part of it. Now, we all do this. A learning objective document's much shorter and really doesn't show these relationships. The whole subject's got about 100 concepts at the bottom level. The initial version students get is only for the first 4 weeks, so it's not quite so frightening. It's the ethics topic, which, well, you can see ethical analysis. Oh, that's a real win for computer science students. They come in saying, this is, I always wanted to do this. Not. Okay. So did the students find,
Just to understand, this is from a course you actually teach in the university, and you went and manually marked all the 3-level topics for the whole course.
And I put them in a spreadsheet. So this is column 1, column 2, and column 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's pinning down what the hell you think you're actually teaching. Yeah.
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 I mean, just by doing that, you'll probably be getting a better course. You know, I don't think, to be honest, a lot of times when we teach, we kind of walk into the room assuming we know what we're doing, right?
Yeah. And I actually, when I argued for changing the official learning objectives, I actually took someone through this to argue that we didn't have to have it go through some committee, that we'd just been sloppy before and I'd pinned it down more. But it means no wonder students don't know what they've got to know. So we also built a chat bot for students to talk about this. And very quickly.
I thought that you built a chat bot for you. to organize the spreadsheet.
No, that might have been nice, but no.
Not yet.
Well, the thing is I actually think that spreadsheet is a creative, it's a bunch of decisions, right? It's me deciding what's important and what's going to go in there and how to, it took me a while. Each year I changed it for a while to get it more understandable. And it's full, in fact, it is full of jargon. This is one of the challenges. Students don't understand course learning objectives because they've got to use jargon that hopefully, you know, they know by the end. But they're not going to make any sense at the beginning. But I think this is just a much more detailed version. I also use it when I write the exam. I copy the same spreadsheet and keep track of how much assessment I've done on which bits. I could talk more about the open learner model. It's in that other paper that's in the slides. So what we did is we made it available to students and we said, well, will they use it? So we had various class activities and we pulled them out, right? The chatbot activities. This is when I first introduced the students, said in the lecture, here's the chatbot, use it if you like. At that point, it only had the first 4 weeks of knowledge. And this is obviously students just deciding to play, I think. Well, I don't think we've looked at it. But this is the week before the exam. So what it chatted to them about is how well you think you know something, why you think it, and a discussion on how you can learn more and how you can reflect on your knowledge, right? So it was really focusing on understanding what the subject's about. How did students use it? They did self-ratings. It was said, please rate yourself 1 to 5. Here's a student saying one thing. There was things like, I'm confused by this topic or I'm fairly confident. But there are also explicit references to the ontology that I gave them. And this is now jargon. I know that cognitive biases may result in bias in the resulting data analysis, but I'm not sure how that relates to short-term memory. And I don't know what pre-attentive vision is. And there had been lots of, I don't know, that may not mean a lot because obviously it's guts of the course. Broadly, the top half of the class used it more, big surprise. The students who did, when we took the exam and split the top half, they used it more overall. They've had longer interactions, more genuine ones rather than play. And they made comments like this. We did a survey in week 6 and in week 12. And, you know, it's fairly high agreement that it met their needs. And one student anonymously, only one in 220, anonymously said that they really loved it. Now, this is a subject. The students are not sure what they've got to learn, and it's completely alien to statistics and computer science, right? It's human factors, right? I think there's scope for it elsewhere.
What does bot actually do? I mean, does the bot help them figure out where they are on the topic map? Or?
It asks them, what are you most sure about and least sure about? Rate your knowledge, and then a discussion about how they know. And my exam questions all take different bits of the ontology and say, well, you learnt this up here. How is it relevant down here at this other end of the spectrum, right? When you do information visualization, how's that related to cognitive biases or whatever, which the students don't enjoy. They tend to answer one or the other and not the link. Only the best students do both, even though there's practice during the semester. So the chatbot helps them discuss those topics, which is why that...
So the chatbot actually assesses them? No,
it just talks to them about the course. It's got the course content and the hierarchy. It could theoretically have all the slides, but it doesn't. It just, it has a little bit more, but mostly it just has the ontology. I haven't shown you the full ontology details because the ontology's actually got descriptions that are longer.
So it discusses the ontology with students and helps them clarify what they think they know, which isn't necessarily what they actually know.
True.
Okay.
But it helps them reflect on the relationships between things and what the terms mean and how you might assess things.
So it's kind of scaffolded metacognition.
It is. And so my very last bit is 4 grand challenges. There are, I'd love to talk. I know that you're here to share what you're doing. How do we design curricula for people to learn to use existing AI tools? I haven't focused on that. How to make the AI a partner. I've made this one a separate one. It's still curriculum, but how do we teach learners to be responsible for what they do? I have to say it was one of my big insights in first year programming that a lot of the weaker students didn't realise that if they wrote a program and they said, well, I don't understand it, that really didn't make sense. I mean, they really ought to think they at least understood it and take responsibility, and we're going to need that. And how we support, this is a hard one. How do we support time poor educators? We're all too busy. We have too many things to do and the damn stuff changes all the time. 4th one is assessment of student knowledge. Where's that going to go? That's a huge can of worms in the expression we use. And this, frankly, there's been a lot going on for a long time, but the large language models have pushed us to the point where we need to do something about it. My own view is that we tell students we want them to know the higher Bloom levels, and they know that in the exam they'll only be tested in the lower ones, so why should they care? You'll waste your time if you care about marks, or if you're frightened of failing, which our overseas students get thrown out of the country if they fail stuff. So they're worried about failing. A lot of people did various bits of our work, and I'm ready for questions, but I hopefully not talk too long. Thank you. Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
Yes.
My name is Guy Cohen. I'm a PhD student here in Tel Aviv University School of Education, under the supervision of Professor Anat Cohen. And we are dealing with Gen AI and SRL, developing tools and softwares to support K-12 students SRL skills.
Yeah.
So I agree with the open learner model, and I think that we are doing it when we developed our software. But the question is, where is the line between I want to support my student, then to the fact that afterwards, when they leave the academia or they leave our course, they go into the reality and they use other tools where they don't have this kind of support. So maybe it's good for our course, but then it's damage for them in the future because they are used to learn in a way where they have this kind of support all the time. And now when I'm becoming a lifelong learner, the answer should be, okay, so also the tools that we use daily, they should use the same.
You got it, yeah.
But meanwhile, it's an ideal. We don't have it. So.
Well, there are a few bits to your question. Well, firstly, as I said, there is no widely accepted term for a learner model or user model or an open learner model. People just don't know about them. And as I said, my students understand. I was involved in a collaboration with people who are psycho-oncologists, and we had a grant to build a system to teach a trio of people. When you have a cancer consultation, there is typically a clinician, a cancer patient, and a support person. That's what the trio is. So the tutoring system was to teach all three how to take part in that role because it's tricky. And we built an open learner model. What was interesting was those psycho-oncologists were open learner model ontology. They were picking up those words happily. So it's not as if we can't. And I showed you the Khan Academy one. Oh, thank you. The Khan Academy one, that's sitting there. But if we don't have the language to share, that's got to be a barrier, I think. Now, I actually think that if learners have some sort of scaffolding while they're learning and they don't have it elsewhere, well, better that they have it here than nowhere. Maybe tell them how lucky they are.
But then they need to,
Transparent.
yes, but I'm not sure. Yeah, but when you think how, yeah, how it would be easy for them to transfer.
Well, if it's not in another tool, there are a lot of tools that have problems, all sorts of problems. I don't see that as an issue until we change the world. I will say when you use it in education, I had a number of PhD students who've done various projects, and interestingly, there are students that we had a teaching system that taught them something that was, it was worth a princely half a mark or something for preparation for their class. And most people did it just before. So they were under time pressure, right? And it was in 3 parts, each with a quiz at the end. And we did different experiments at different times, but they didn't have to look at their learner model, but they did after each. Different people did it more or less. And that kind of makes sense. So you don't have to have a learner model all the time. And I actually think, again, I haven't given you enough detail. The paper has more detail and the slides have got the reference. I'm happy to send it. And I'm happy to share I'm pretty sure the paper has a link to my Google Doc that I share with the students. It's very easy to do. And a learner could do it themselves. I could actually imagine a student of mine who really liked it, the one who wrote that comment, might in the next subject write it up. The Cogniti chatbot is used to chat about subjects without an open learner model, but the subjects I've seen are things like biochemistry, where there are buckets of words, you know, lots and lots of words to learn, and you can see how just feeding that into a large language model and having a chat about what are the subparts of I don't know enough biochemistry to ask the questions, but you can imagine that it could be set up to run a conversation that helps a student actually check their learning. In my subject, that was harder because I couldn't feed in. Yes, it was quite a lot of work designing the spreadsheet. I could bring it up and share it in a minute.
And then think about what, sorry,
Yeah.
just thinking about what you're saying, basically I could kind of build, you know, a GEM or a GPT where I upload the course materials as my professor provided them and give it instructions to have that conversation with me and help me maintain a learning model, right? And I wonder if, you know, if we build a kind of an open tool like that, whether students would use it and whether it would be helpful for them.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. So to be honest, the AI ed community has a huge tradition of open learner models. And one of my favorites is one that Vincent Levin, my colleague, did for Lynette teaching maths. And you do maths problems and then you can say, all right, show me my progress. It's a bit like, show me how I've succeeded. But he added a step before that, where he asked the learner to self-assess their knowledge, right? You've just done this lesson, so how well do you think you know blah? And then he showed them what the system believed. And they learned more by having that steps. So that's one trick that we need to learn. As I said, we had a trick that students tended to do it after a quiz. In my lectures, there were 2 big assignments. So after the first assignment on ethics, I asked the students to actually fill in their own self-assessment of all the topics we'd covered and then put that into Canvas, a summary, because once you get down to the 3rd level, there are too many. So I gave them a new version spreadsheet that added them up and did the average for them. And then I showed that to the class and asked them to discuss why a lot of people don't feel confident about blah, or they do feel confident about whatever. and use that to say, well, what we actually, each lecture ended in what I called a sparkle and mud, a quiz which was used. There was a half a mark for attending each lecture. And that was based on doing the quiz, which I released without telling them ahead of time. It was on Zoom, on Canvas, and it was only open for a little while. And that to say one thing they really liked and took away and valued, put details, and one thing that was muddy, unclear. And I made it 220 students. It was very quick to actually look at the spreadsheet that you exported from Canvas, and I would do revision. So it paid them a little. So you can do things like that and then tell them also to update their own spreadsheet of the learner model. I think we've got a way to go to make it more fun and easier. Yeah.
So I'm Melinda Cohen, and I'm here from Tel Aviv University. And it's not a question, it's just a wondering.
Yeah.
I'm familiar from this community of AI education and web mining, edge mining, and etc. But I all the time think how we can elaborate or how we can broaden what you do in the community of computer science.
Yep.
To education. I mean, you are speaking. I had a PhD student. Now she's got a PhD. She does work very similar to yours, with all the sequence and the rubric and to find the learner models. And it's very hard for us to translate it to educators or practitioners. I mean,
yeah.
So I wonder whether you have experience with taking your stuff, your thing that you are doing, and implement it in teachers or
not yet. I'd love to discuss doing that with other people.
I think it's so important because you are speaking about learning models. You are speaking about learning and instruction. But you are focused obviously in your things, while thinking together with educators will make it much stronger.
I agree. Well, I will actually say that paper that is down here.
Because even
this paper was Catherine Bartlemore's education. Kirsty Kitto is Peter Ryman. He's in the learning sciences community. But we did have a mixed group, and it actually had interesting discussions in finalising the paper, especially on social comparison, which our education colleagues were not keen on. I agree with you. It's a big gap. And as I actually said, some of the slides here I actually changed after talking to the learning sciences people at the university, because I realised they didn't. I won't tell you what the term was. There was a term that they said, what does that mean? And I tried to explain it, and it was clear it was no good. So part of it is, I mean, epistemology. You had that session, we talked about the different epistemologies. It's something the students in this subject aren't teaching suffer. Actually, Bob used the same approach for a first-year programming course, but only to design the materials, drawing the spreadsheet and keeping track, because it was a class for 1,500 students, and just being able to share with the other people responsible for deciding the course helped pin down what they'd agreed had to be there, because it's flipped, and Bob was making the videos and working with the people who were building the other materials. So and there are a lot of people involved. So not with the students. And then with another course you did also, where you more technical, But I agree with you. I think we're still finding our way. As I said, no one talks about open learner models or learner models for that matter. I mean, we do have the learning analytics community definitely talks about data. Oh, terrific. You look in Canvas and you can download heaps of stuff. Whether well, actually, it's very hard to get at the video data on our Canvas, but theoretically, you could find out whether, if there are flipped classrooms, you could find out whether they at least played the video. Theoretically, you might be able to find out if they played it, how fast. Not terrific data. And then you have, they do homework problems and submit them. Who knows whether that's them or someone else. That data is really hard to use. And it's partly because no one designed any of these systems with the idea of saying, well, let's design this so that we can show the learner what the hell is going on. And I just think we haven't started the conversation. I agree, it's too hard. I've now had experience in building an open learner model for a programming subject with one student, and also for human-computer interaction, and also a student who worked with medicine in Australia has 2 years when it's problem-based learning, and they have 2 years of whatever. And then they do this big exam, which is multiple choice questions. And they have 500 or 600 learning topics and 10 questions for each that they practice on, because that's their practice for the exam. And so the learner model actually, it's defined the learning topic. Someone had decided that already. So we've had a bit of experience in designing interfaces for those. But really, there's nothing off the shelf that makes it dead easy. I agree. And not in the medicine one was done by the medical people. I shouldn't say it's easier because when you didn't do something, it's easy to say it looks easier. But for the 3 I did, it was really hard to do. I think for the programming subject, it was easy, computer science programming. I had less difficulty saying what the 5 or 6 top level topics were and what the subtopics were. That was, on the other hand, each year when I wrote the exam and I tried to say, well, how well are they doing on these, and how well did I measure it, and how well did I succeed, I ended up tinkering with it and changing what I understood I was trying to teach. And so I'm trying to say it's intellectually hard to design this thing. And the other thing the students get is they're taught about, in my subject this time, about Bloom levels. Oh no, I tell them there are Bloom levels, but I don't use them because the computer science curriculum has 3, the US Army has 3. 3 is enough. So, it's sort of beginner, middling, and very good. And for each topic, I indicate the level of mastery I expect by the end. Because, it's the classic Bloom. Sometimes you just want them to know the definition of a term, but other times you really want them to have much more substantial knowledge, especially of skills. I also have a number of attitudes, because I'm struggling with this one of learners taking responsibility and epistemic humility. How confident are you that you think about what you don't know? It's not popular with my students, so I've got a long way to go on that one. I'm not really answering your question. It's a conversation to continue. I agree with you.
If, follow up on that. First of all, I'd like you to let you talk a bit about epistemic humility. I wonder what that is. But
sorry.
Just to follow up on that question, I wonder if Gen AI might be a game changer here in the sense that it allows teachers to build systems where previously they were at the mercy of developers. And, so maybe that's a way to close the gap where, if you see what I mean.
I do agree with you. In fact, with just the paper deadline for AI Ed is any minute now. So I've been working with a student the last couple of days on some follow-up work from this, where the chatbot is helping a student choose, do I want to study this subject or not? Is it right for me? And I was just reading some of the transcripts, which should have been double-coded, but they weren't. We'll hope the reviewers don't mind. But anyway, I didn't have time to double-code them and compare. But I found them fascinating because the students did a think aloud. She did a study with 16 students using this chatbot, comparing it with just the open learner model. Okay, the students were given the standard course outline and asked to think about whether they want to do it or not, whether they're ready for it, blah, blah. It's a bunch of questions, and to read it and talk aloud. And of course they said, it's got all these words. I hate it when the lecturer puts these words I don't know. But I had to write that document to get approved by a university committee. So I had to put the words in that we use. Anyway, we won't. Then with reversed order, half them each order, met the OLM spreadsheet and talked about what they learned about how to decide whether this course was for them. And then they had a chatbot. And what I felt strongly with the chatbot, I hope she put it in, was, we know from the computer-supported collaborative learning community, this is talking to anyone about anything, helps you think through your ideas. Mm-hmm. And it felt to me as I read it, there was a lot of that going on, that the students were reflecting, talking about, whether they, making comments about, it says you've got to know blah, it's relying on this from this other course. I was never good at that. It's putting me off. And so on. And the chatbot could help them drill down more on what that meant. But it was more about them thinking it through. Now, again, what I haven't put it here, but for a computer science talk, I would actually say that what I think we need is a learner model out of these chatbot conversations. And Danny Liu, this guy here, he was actually we were discussing adding a learner model to the chatbot, the cognitive chatbot that he provides, which would keep track of what on earth you discussed and what you hadn't. I mean, we have 100 concepts in this thing. Did you spend your whole time talking about ethics, or did you move to other things or whatever? And we haven't, there are, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. I agree, I think.
Can you elaborate a bit more about epistemic humility?
Yes, that was, okay. So at the beginning of this course, one of the things students have to do for their ethics assignment is to read a paper. And I actually asked them to read. I never found a good one on it. So epistemic humility means being humble about what you know. And it's sort of the view that experts are good at that. They're good at saying, I know this bit and that bit, but not other bits. And I must say my own experience with, say, Gemini research is if I don't know about a topic and I ask Gemini about it, I'm impressed and think I learn a lot. Maybe I do, because I didn't know anything. But when I put in things I know about, I see lots of problems. And I haven't quite worked out how I could clean up the prompt to improve them. It just ignoring issues of bias. I don't ask it about Israel conflicts. I mean, I ask it really boring stuff from computer science. So when you've interacted with one of these, how do you judge whether you know something or not? Mm-hmm. And we don't do a lot of practice in it. I mean, at one level, let's be pragmatic. In a school system, I'll talk about the Australian school system. There's this big stakes final exam, year 12. And you need to know enough to be able to do well on that exam, which enables you to get into places you want to go to. But there are students who actually want to learn. And So this is very much about understanding what you know and don't know. And that's part, I think, of the curriculum for taking responsibility for something that you've built. Because if it's, I think of computer science, they write software. The AI can help with that. They do testing. The AI can help with that. How good is it? Am I willing to sign? You know, to sign, yes, this is working well. And do I even know enough to be able to do that? Thinking back to K to 12, we don't expect kids to be expert at something. But do we actually help them understand how little they do know?
It's very interesting what you're saying, because in our research, we train children
Yes.
with skills.
Yes.
The chatbot,
Yes.
train them to use cognitive, metacognitive, motivational strategies.
Yeah.
And we all the time, before we start the training, we ask them about how much they use these skills.
Yeah.
And they rate it very high. And they say that they all the time do it, and etc. And then after training, we give them same questionnaire, and then the rate drop down.
Yep.
So for research, it's bad, because like the training wasn't so good, because the rate goes down. But actually, what they understood,
yeah,
now they know what we are asking about, and now they are more critical.
Yep.
And now they evaluate the real.
So there's, I think it's two-edged sword, because if suddenly you realize how much you don't know, that might also be this motivating, in the sense that, oh, well, I don't know anything and I'm hopeless and I'll just give up, right?
Well, I think, again, and okay, I haven't taught teachers, but I've taught computer scientists in this particular subject, human in the loop data analytics. I've done various experiments in teaching them very different things about, say, Bloom taxonomy, or my revised version that I decided Bloom, and there are other options. But, you know, the question is, at what level do I expect you to achieve in this subject? I don't expect you to be up at creation level. I mean, not realistic. So at least we're actually putting in the, again, this learner model spreadsheet says big decision, you know, how high do I want to claim? And this kind of links with work we did in a system called CUSP, in some research with Richard Bluger as the student, where the university wanted to measure development of generic skills across the whole degree program, and where generic skills is, you know, communication, group work, ethics, all those things that firstly the accreditation people care about. And the university has a set, and each faculty changes it a bit. So medicine has a slight variation, engineering has a variation. And then it gets mapped to, in our case, we get accredited. So we map it to that. But what was interesting was when that was first created, every teacher said, say, communication skills, they were doing the top level. And so we'd say, well, you've got a 4-year degree. Surely you start in first year with some of the lower levels and make sure the students have got those. And you then, if this subject required you to do that one, then you can say, well, we know they had practice here. Do we develop it? And so that was very exciting work, and some people in South America are commercializing it. But I think we don't talk much about what level. That's part of the epistemic humility, though. Is epistemology only knowledge, not skills and attitudes? That's what worries me, because I think feeling you want to be responsible for thinking about whether you know something is an attitude rather than a skill, or anyway, and I'm sure education's gone into this much more than I have. Some of my students love this discussion. I can't say most of them do. But we also need to train them, right? historically, I've done several stints, but not for a while, of teaching the very first programming subject at university. And I loved it because they believe you and they listen to you about some things, where later on they think they know when they don't. But you're right. Yeah, it's a real winner. But so in a sense, what you were doing was measuring the change on, well, metacognitive awareness, which we could say is, I don't know, is there a better word than epistemic humility? I don't know. I do think we need to be aware of what we don't know.
Absolutely.
And I think, maybe the higher education institute should know where the students are. The assumption that they're all there, not the skills, digital skills and the competencies for these kinds of activity. I think it's wrong in some cases, and usually it's not there. So this is a big challenge, and I heard it from different aspects that the students are there. They know how to use, they know how to use technology, they know how to use, but they don't in some cases.
That's interesting. Yeah, because it is a similar thing. So we have students who, research students, when they start, I usually say to them, do you know how to use Google Scholar? They invariably say yes. Now, I don't say on a scale of 1 to 10, but I then say to them, well, let me take you through. I take groups, normally take a group of 6 so-called honours students and go through the research methods. And I say, when I do human-computer interaction, this is how I use it. Now, if you do another field, you'd have to use it differently. And so, in a sense, asking them if they know how to use it, the fact they can answer it, oh, yes, is a sign they haven't even said, well, I seem to be pretty good at doing it in this field, but not that field. But I guess we haven't put a lot of effort into helping students think about what they do and don't know. I mean, can that be on the final exam and rated? Yeah, I mean, it could be, couldn't it? How well do you know this topic? Now rate yourself, and you're going to get marks if it matches. Yeah, if you say, I don't know it at all, you get 5 points out of 5 if you actually show you don't know it. You just won't pass the exam. No, it's, yeah.
Have you checked whether there is a point where too much information could cause cognitive load?
Absolutely. No, I haven't, but I know it could. I actually have some memories of my own learning computer science and seeing things over and over and over, and then suddenly, maybe after a year or two, thinking, oh, now I understand what that means. So in the experiments I've done with my spreadsheet learner model, with them adding what they know and don't know, we reserve time in the lecture to go through it. And we also reserve time for the chatbot in what we call the tutorials, when there are 25 students, and the tutor then has a discussion around it. But yes, and I think also if I'm a student learning maths, obviously if I'm working hard on a skill that I haven't got, which could be subtraction or whatever, I don't have the bandwidth to think about how I'm doing. Here's my learner model, here are the 7. And the other problem in that is, I learnt in the AI Ed community, there's a thing called a subtrahend and a minuend. When you say 18 minus 7, that's the subtrahend and that's the minuend. We're not going to be able to talk to kids about those. But apparently maths educators do, because then you talk about the properties of the minuend, whether you have to carry or whatever. So if there are 30 skills, and there probably are in learning to subtract one number from another, you'd have to pace the progress on that. And then I don't even know if we worry about it. I mean, being able to do it quickly is important too, right? If you haven't automated skills, then you haven't really learnt some of them. But we don't even talk about that. We tend to talk about what we can put on the final exam, don't we?
Well, it depends. It depends where. Yeah, among math educators or among researchers and different teachers, courses different. Actually, I want to share something that's interesting that.
Can you just tell me your name?
Yeah, my name is Aina.
Aina.
Yeah. And I was a former lead researcher in the Ministry of Education in the Institute for Applied Research of AI in Education, and we conducted 9 researchers. One of them was in computer science, integrating a bot into studying of computer coding, actually. And it was a Socratic
Yes.
bot, which make for the student, it was hard for the student to get an answer. They couldn't get the answer, like, how do I do it? It worked with them.
Yep.
And it was like tailored answer to them, and okay, why don't you try this and that? But the thing is that it was an experiment, so it's like only the very initial stage. But it was interesting to see that because many of the students were used to work with Gemini, ChatGPT, etc., and to get the answer.
Yes.
Yeah, how do I do this? They got the answer. Now with the Socratic bot, they didn't get the answer they were expecting, and so many students got cursed, actually.
Yeah.
They cursed the bot
Awesome.
massively, and only the ones that were persistent and managed to go over this emotion, frustration,
Yeah.
managed to get help and pass this stage of being frustrated and actually learned. And so few of the students that persisted, actually you see their progress. I think this is a really amazing tool, but it contradicts the general models which get you the answer. So I wonder how you see this contradiction between.
They're used to epistemic fast food, right?
Yeah. So I do think you have to scaffold things in a classroom, first of all. You have to sell it. The better you can sell it, the better. And there is a paper which I can't find at the moment, but there is starting to be some papers showing that giving them the fast food means they learn less. And I've been more interested in programming the students who just took the answers. I mean, we had literature on students attending lectures and copying notes versus typing them by hand, and there was more learning when they typed. Big surprise. Well, but nevertheless, you have to do the experiment to show it. And this is kind of similar. You don't engage, right? If the thing just gives you the answer, you haven't actually dealt with the information, whereas at least, there are a number of papers I've seen with Socratic tutors. Obviously, firstly, it's not hard to build them with the large language models. And so that does seem an obvious choice. Of course, I haven't seen one with a open learner model yet, that helps the learner see that they're actually making some progress.
What we do in the Socratic bots is to ask him in the end to give an exit card that say how the student learned on his way, all over the way when he went through the Socratic model. And this exit gives you a term how he learned.
So that's in the courses that you're teaching?
When I now taught my students to they are about to be a teacher for data scientist in schools.
Yep.
Okay, so most of the subjects in data scientist is skills that they have to data analyst. It's skills that they have to teach. It's not a subject that they have to teach. So what I ask them is to build the process of the teaching, that it's, I think, a bit kind of the model of learning. Yes,
Right.
to think how they're going to teach the skill, how to, I don't know, for instance, how to read,
Code?
no code, statistics, something.
Right,
statistic,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
okay.
Visualization of
Yeah.
statistic
Yeah,
or something like that. מגמות, trends, sort of trends and everything. So they had to think how to make the algorithm of teaching and learning. It was like that, and then put it in a bot, and a Socratic bot, to give the student in the class in the high school to use it to help them in the way. So it was like a bit like I do, we do, you do, and the bot is going with them to the you do, so they can do it like this. So when they do, I do, they do the model, and we do, they do the model together. And when it went to you do, they gave them the bot that will be with them to do it by themselves.
So your students build the bots that their students use to work through the problem.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the process, the bot would give them an exit card
Yeah.
with his
They
eye can open their
gave-
problem.
Yeah, and they gave this card to the teachers to see how they work with the bot.
Right. I was just actually thinking in that Biggs model, I mean, interacting with the bot is like a teaching and learning activity. So having separately an assessment would be in the spirit of the model, so that you then say, all right, you've just chatted with that bot. Here's the test. Let's see how you go.
No, we show them how to
Yeah,
do
okay.
these procedures in the bot. It's
Yeah.
not just given
Right, the prompts, yeah.
It's not like-
So I'm keen to, I mean, hope people will share some, if you've written up some of this, I'd love to see it. Yeah, I think we're all finding our way. The AI journal has had an explosion of papers. And before I left in 2024 mid-year, I think we'd been going for years with 100 papers a year. It was lovely. We were all organised. And then ChatGPT broke it all. And I think they're on track for 1,200 that year. But I think the rejection rate on the ones I handled, it was at least 95%, because they were, I gave the students this to do and I asked them what they thought. And they thought they'd learnt a lot. That's nice. And I don't object to asking students what they thought. That is important to know. But almost no one measured what they had actually, pre-test, post-test, with the sort of standard in this sort of research. Made it very quick to reject. And so, I'm keen to see the results and see how it helps the learning and how they can put it.
I took research for that, and it just was the experience.
What you're doing, okay, with the students. What tool do you use to build for them to build the chatbot?
What
Large language model?
James.
All right.
People James. It was like they asked them to. It's a bot of German.
Okay, all right, because our students have got a kosher list, which is, they don't call it that. Approved list of software you're allowed to use. And well, I haven't checked it lately, but there were only 2 tools that were large language models that were approved. One was Copilot, and the other was this
Israel, Gemini is
Cognitive.
in schools.
Yeah,
Israel,
Gemini is allowed in school
okay.
from the
Well, I don't know
6th
whether
grade.
it may be also in Australia. I don't know because I don't work in schools. And I'm not even on the committee that decides what's on the list. But I do know there were only 2.
So Copilot,
And
Cognitive.
and Cognitive, yeah. Which Cognitive's got
Cognitive runs on OpenAI Azure.
I can't remember. I'd have to have a look. And it's changed from time to time. The paper we wrote, I asked him for that paper exactly what version he was, because it's not easy to work that out.
Yes.
Yes, and he's set it up so that I gather it doesn't keep the data. I think that's the point, that it doesn't continue to train using your data or something. I don't know. I should know probably. Mind you, I think there is so much of this stuff that you're pretty safe, security by obscurity, you know, that you've got large numbers of children putting rubbish in, so Gemini has to obviously decide whether to use any of it or something.
I think אני חושבת שבמשרד החינוך יש איזשהו הסכם עם גוגל.
There's materials for training the models.
It's been set up so they don't. Okay, cool.
Google for education. Gemini for education.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't know why our list is the list it was, but
But it's rather recent. It's I think
The last year.
yeah, the last year, but it's
okay. Yeah, I looked possibly a year ago at ours. I think, well, maybe when we were
In Israel, there's a national cloud platform, and that they had big kind of tender for that, and there were a lot of restrictions on providers for that platform, and Google and AWS got in, so that kind of makes it easier for the Ministry of Education to work with Google. So, in terms of the legalities, it's sorted through that avenue.
Yeah.
And then we just had to make it work for the school. So, last year we managed to get it for year 8, and now it's down to year 7. 6.
Okay. So you're doing, obviously you've got a whole new degree where teachers are going to be learning.
In Beit Bell.
Yeah.
Actually, it's just the 2 of us from Beit Bell.
Right. Okay, I like to.
They're from Tel Aviv, from Levinsky.
independent.
And Meta. So we have a degree in AI education, and Elad has the degree in data analysis. So those 2 new degrees at Bethel.
Potential degree.
Oh, yeah, we need students.
Oh, so you've created it, but not.
No, I have students.
You are.
Yeah, and data analysis has students. We've just opened registrations.
All right.
We'll open next year.
Sorry, I have to leave. Thank you so much.
Well, nice to meet you. Sorry, I didn't get your name.
My name is Chevy, and I'm from Teachers College, University Academic.
Well, lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much. It was really wonderful.
I feel as though I need to know more about what all of you are doing.
You want to say the point?
Okay.
Yes.
So actually, I think also before the COVID and after the COVID, we focused a lot on skills,
Right.
skill development. We have several projects with Ministry of Education and Science, Ministry of Science, how to teach children to activate these strategies.
Right.
And we do it in several technologies. We started with videos and other digital materials, and of course, now we are using chatbot that we developed with API to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And it's really nice. Guy, he does his PhD on this chatbot. And we very fast learned that we cannot compete the dynamic of this area. So we now work with the startup company, and she actually does the development, and we give the ideas and all that. That's what they said about the connection between the AI community and educators. So actually it brings the technology and the computer science knowledge, and we bring the education, and we now develop different kind of chatbots. One is more supervised, one is more open, and we have a lot of research on that.
And you're analysing the conversations?
Yes.
Because, because we have another project that the PhD student's doing with a natural language student to use natural language to understand or to analyse the chat transcripts, because Annie hand-coded them for this.
And doing so, we have a lot of professional development, teachers, professional development. We do a lot of training for teachers and students, and even pre-service teacher in my classes. So actually this is the main focus, but we do other stuff as well.
So what's the name of the startup?
Slice knowledge.
Slice knowledge. Okay.
And we are involved in two European projects. One of them is under Horizon Europe. It's called Effective, and we try to understand what makes teacher trainings in the field of learning technologies effective. And we have several models that we are trying to analyze. And the other is
any of them use learner models? Not yet.
We will use this terminology.
Well, you might have them. And it is a step above the data though, right? It's not just
that.
And the other one we are building with several countries in Europe, open online course on Gen AI for teachers. So we also deal with the question you raised, like how to teach them to communicate with AI. How can I stay in the loop? And in all of this project, we use the help of Allah, who come from the medicine faculty. So we take a lot of knowledge from medicine to medical education. Medical education.
And you're from medical education?
I'm from Faculty of Medicine, Medical Education.
What's your name again?
Allah Bones. Allah, A-double-L-A.
Allah. Russian.
Russian, Ukrainian. It's common.
You want to say a bit more about your work?
I'm a medical educator or something like that. And then we have a kind of unit, medical education, in our faculty. And we are in charge of 3 topics, I can say. We are building and creating assessment and psychometrics for entering exams, for clinical exams, or different kinds of exams, with the eye, without the eye, and different tests we also try to create. Also, we are in charge with staff development, clinical staff development. And we are making research in medical education.
Cool.
And I'm working with someone.
We've done one project that is on medical education, but a bit bit away from. Well, I did mention the exam, but that was quite a long time ago. We're using what's called clinical indicators. Things like it's with the hospitals, length of stay, unplanned admissions, all sorts of stuff that is reported to the government, and built a system to show it to the clinicians. There is, it's sort of horrible data, but the hospitals would like the clinicians to be able to know more about it. So it's a very unusual project. But what I discovered from that is that medical education is its own universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you don't publish in AI Ed, you publish in medical education journals, and not in learning sciences. It's all a separate world. And our psycho-oncologists also had a separate world, like they, when I actually provided a human-computer interaction classic reference for the Think Aloud protocol, they found another one from their area that was definitely much more recent and definitely, you know, you normally, anyway. It's very interesting working in different areas. We have a challenge with, well, we talked about that in the previous thing about having
I think
different
the whole emergence of Gen AI has been kind of, and you started with that, how people really don't realize that there's decades of work they could refer to and just reinvent everything.
Yeah, well, it's, I don't know, I don't quite understand why we've kept our field so isolated, and it's starting to spread at least into learning analytics and computers in education (AI), which is a new version of computers in education. I've found some papers. Well, of course, I don't read teacher education, so I don't know. There would be top journals there, but engineering education, computer science education, there is a little bit of there is an overlap of computer science education, because a lot of the people, what I'm surprised, is computer scientists that do computer science education at university. So some of them are also doing AI Ed. So we've got a little bit of cross-fertilization, but I guess that explains why it hasn't gone anywhere else, right? But learning sciences is not that far away. In fact, it broke away from AI Ed at one point. I don't know. It's tricky. Yeah.
I think we should probably wrap up. So I want to thank you again.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please contact me. I didn't put my name. Well, jodijk@gmail.com. It's easy to find. Love to hear more about what you're doing, especially you've got a PhD to pump out. I'd love to read the papers. Yeah. Okay.
Great.
And lovely to meet all of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.